Hello, can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Welcome to the, we knocked my cheat sheet here. I call the April 12, 2022 Village of Los Ranchos Regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order at 7 p.m. So we'll do a roll call for establishing commissioners. Commissioner Christensen. Well,
Not present, but Miss
is
is present.
Commissioner Gay is present. Commissioner Seavey is excused. Commissioner Michelson,
Present.
Commissioner Smith. I believe I saw something from Tiffany that she may have been excused as well. Commissioner Barrow
Present.
and Commissioner Homan.
Here.
Let the record reflect that a quorum is present for the meeting. So we will go into the approval of the agenda. Director Justice, are there any changes to the agenda?
Director Justice is not signed in yet. She's having some technical difficulties.
Wow. Well,
If we can give her just a couple of minutes, she is working on signing back in right now.
okay.
Kiko, Mr. Chair, this is Nan Winter. I just wanted to let you know I got kicked off like 2 minutes before we started and had to get back on.
And so did I.
Okay.
So did I.
I got kicked off a couple of times as well.
Yes, everybody got kicked off. There was a issue on the back end, and that's why it and so that's mostly resolved at this point. We're just waiting for Commissioner Justice. I'm sorry, not for yeah, you all know what I meant.
Commissioners, I apologize for being unable to get into the meeting. I had run into some technical difficulties. I am assuming we're on the agenda item if there's any changes to the agenda.
We are you,
There are no changes to the agenda.
okay?
And in case
Uh,
that was not in the record earlier, Commissioner Smith is excused.
Okay. Are you on?
Move, I move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
Tiffany?
I apologize, Commissioner Gay, could you repeat your question?
Yeah, I just wondered if you were on video as well or just audio.
Yes, I am on video.
Okay. So there are no changes to the agenda, is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move for approval of the agenda.
A second.
Second, so it was Commissioner Michelson approved and Commissioner Christensen second?
No, Carol.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we'll go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay, yes. Commissioner Michelson,
Yes,
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Homan.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, the motion carries unanimously. Now we will go into the public comment period. And residents may address the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Audience members will be given an opportunity to comment on the agenda items as they come up. Speakers must register with the village staff prior to the beginning of the meeting, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Kiko, do we have any members of the public?
If there's anybody, there's nobody signed up to speak, but if there's anybody who would like to speak, please use your raise your hand function now.
So commissioners, not seeing any hands raised, there is a written comment submitted from a member of the public that I will read aloud into the record now. This is comments for Planning and Zoning meeting, April 12th, 2022. Address, Camilo Vados, long-standing resident of the village of Los Ranchos, 427 El Paraiso Road Northwest, Los Ranchos to Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87107. Good evening, Tiffany, Justice, and Commissioners. Thank you for your time and dedication. As the revitalization plans moves forward, and as zones are changed from A1 to A2, this can lead to a significant change in our beautiful agricultural area, which we grew up in, or why individuals relocate here. Neighborhoods were safe for families to raise their children in. Neighborhoods have been the mainstay and fabric of our village. Alvarado Elementary, Los Ranchos Elementary, and Taft Middle School were noted as A-rated schools. Now some of our schools have below average ratings. Director Justice and the Commissioners, when it comes time to creating zoning maps, when it comes to vote on applications that fall short of our existing ordinances, and when Airbnbs or short-term rentals, businesses with clients are approved in existing neighborhoods, and there are neighbors who object because of traffic concerns, noise, and other considerations, as liquor being sold 45 feet from a school premise, please listen or consider the impacts of our village. Revenue is important, but we value our children, families, our schools. We/I value our village of Los Ranchos. Thank you, Camilo Vados.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany, for reading that. So there's no one not signed up to speak. So we go into the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. So we will go to the approval of the meeting minutes of March 8th, 2022 regular meeting. Are there any corrections or comments from the commissioners? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda, which includes, of course, the many minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Holman and Commissioner Barrow, is that correct? You second?
Right. Yes.
So have a roll call vote for that. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay, yes. Commissioner Michelson,
yes,
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Holman.
Yes,
Thanks, everybody. The motion carries unanimously. So now we're on to public hearings and applications. The first one is CU 22-03, a request by Joe and Julie Zamora for conditional use permit for a guest house not to exceed 1,000 square feet in heated area as allowed by 9.2.7 C5 in the A1 zone in the North Rio Grande character area. The property is located at 8727 Rio Grande Boulevard Northwest and is legally known as Tract A-3 of Tracts A1, A2, and A3, lands of Evelyn Hutzing, projected section 17T11 NR3E and MPN M within the village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, as filed in the office of the Bernalillo County Clerk on June 17, 1987. The property contains 1.3466 acres, more or less. So are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? Seeing none. Attorney Winter, would you please swear in Director Tiffany Justice?
Stephanie, your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So, Director Justice, may we have the planning report, please?
Certainly. So commissioners, the applicant intends to build a detached structure for a guest house, and that guest house is limited to 1,000 square feet of heated floor area as allowed by section 9.2.7 C5. Surrounding properties to the north, west, south, east, and south are zoned A1 in the North Rio Grande character area, and the property to the northeast is zoned A1 in unincorporated Bernalillo County. This application was originally, conditional use applications are typically administratively approved following a 15-day public notice and comment period, assuming no adverse comments are received. Because we received an adverse comment, the decision is forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Per the requirements for a conditional use permit to be administratively approved, the application did meet those requirements, and the Planning and Zoning Commission decision similarly reflects those requirements. So the conditions for the approval are slightly different for conditional use applications that go before the commission compared to other applications like developments or variances. There is language in our code that says that if the applicant and the application meets subsections A through C of the requirements for conditional use permits, the commission shall approve the application. So that is a slightly different tasking than usual. So for the requirements for conditional use applications go before the commission, there are three. The first is that a conditional use shall only be approved if the proposed use will be in conformance with the master plan and will not be injurious to adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the community. And this guest house conditional use is in conformance with the master plan in the residential development section. And this guest house will not be injurious to adjacent property, neighborhood, or the community. Guest houses have been common practice in the village for years, and conditions have been instituted to protect the character of the village, such as prohibiting rental unless as part of a bed and breakfast permit. Applications for the use of a guest house on the property and is not tied to any building plans. So that is one point that I would like to make here, is that this is for the use of a condition of a guest house, subject to the conditions that are listed in our code. And if they're not tied to physical structures. We review the physical structure when they submit for their zone review permit. And so when we approve the conditional use, we are only saying you can get a guest house as long as you abide by these conditions. Later on, they submit their building permit application and we confirm that they comply with the setbacks, floor area ratio, building height, and that kind of thing. So because that's submitted separately, this is for, again, the use, not a specific building. So you will note that in the application form, there isn't building plans in this. There isn't a proposed location. That's because the applicant is not required to have a set location determined at the time of their conditional use application. And if they did, they're welcome to include a proposal, but we would not hold them to that because that is something that we would actually determine in the zone review permit and the building permit application. Second condition is, or the second requirement is that approval of a conditional use shall be made subject to specific conditions that are deemed necessary to protect the public safety, health, morals, or general welfare of the village. And our code does have specific conditions for the guest house, no more than 1,000 square feet of heated floor area. There's no renting unless it's part of a bed and breakfast permit, no attached garages, no garages, and the prohibition of a separate address. So the idea here is that the main conditions for a guest house are that it is a secondary dwelling compared to the main dwelling, and it is for a single family use on the property. The idea that you don't charge your family and friends to stay there and they wouldn't be getting separate mail. And so all other area requirements of the zone, such as the setbacks, the floor area ratio, and building height, they all comply and apply to the guest house. The third requirement is that an application for conditional use has not been filed within the last 6 months, and that is met. And so with that, the department recommends approval of CU 22-03, a request for a guest house not to exceed 1,000 square feet of heated area, as allowed by section 9.2.7 C5 in the A1 zone in the North Rio Grande character area with the following conditions and findings. The conditions that the guest house is limited to 1,000 square feet of heated floor area with facilities for cooking, not necessarily a full kitchen, microwave, coffee pot, etc., sleeping and sanitation. Guest houses may not have a garage. Occupants should not be charged rent unless an explicit conditional use allowing rental has been approved by the commission, or rent is for only short-term rental, as all are part of a permitted bed and breakfast establishment. And guest houses shall not have a separate address. With the findings that the application does comply with section 9.2.25 E2A through C, which I talked about in my analysis, and the public notice requirements have been met. With that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Justice. Are there any questions from the commission to Commissioner Justice about this application?
Yeah,
Commissioner Barrow?
yes. It's very confusing to me, Commissioner Justice, between the use and what is proposed here. At what point do we give consideration to the letter from Mr. and Mrs. Chavez? That appears to be both the use and prohibition on the building. Can you address that?
Yes, so Commissioner Barrow, commissioners, so concerns about the physical structure itself cannot be addressed with the conditional use application. The conditional use application is for the use of the guest house. Whether that house is compliant with architectural guidelines or not, whether it's attached to the main house or detached, this is for the use of a guest house subject to these conditions. And the commission would not consider the physical structure and review the physical structure with approval of this application. Basically, what would happen is the applicant can come in separately for a zone review permit and a building permit with the village. And then we, as staff, administratively approve or deny that application, based on whether or not it conforms with our code, the setbacks, the floor area ratio, building height. And to address other points in their letter, I would turn that over to Attorney Winter to address at least the civil suit that is referenced in there. about the placement of that location.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Barrow, or?
Not entirely, no.
Okay.
I-
There was
Go ahead.
a request for Attorney Winter to chime in. I'm not sure if you're going to, Nan, or if this is appropriate time, but
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, are you concerned that the litigation has some relevance here?
Should be under at least consideration, the litigation and the points brought out in the Chavez letters, referring specifically to, quote, the guest house will not be injurious to adjacent property. I am not in a position to know whether that's accurate or not.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, the litigation should have no relevance whatsoever in your deliberation here this evening. It's a private matter between private folks, having to do with an easement, which has nothing to do with the application in play. So, you know, my counsel to you is you should not consider that relevant to the application whatsoever. In fact, I think it would do harm if you actually did consider it. There's obviously history here. And I've reviewed the litigation. I know Tiffany has a copy of it, but it's not related at all whatsoever to the application.
Thank you.
okay, is there any other questions for Director Justice on this application? Seeing none, is the applicant present?
Stand by.
Kiko, is there anybody out there that matches the applicant's address?
Yes, stand by. I'm letting them in now.
Yeah, this is Julie. I'm here. I'm just, okay, I see myself now. I'm trying to make sure I'm on the Zoom meeting here. I've been doing a lot of MS Teams meetings, but not a lot of Zoom meetings, so I'm here.
Hi, Julie, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name's Julie Samora. My address is 108 Naravisa Road Northwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Ms. Moore, can I have you raise your right hand?
Sure.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Samar, would you like to speak about your application?
Well, I just, we purchased the lot a couple years ago, and we want to develop it, and it's a challenge to develop a property like this, and we are just moving forward with getting some plans drawn up for the main home, and we wanted to also pursue the conditional use option. So we're excited about being in the village and excited about developing the property. So that's all I really have to say, but I'm happy to entertain any questions from the commission.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Zamora. Does any commissioners have anything to discuss with the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the application?
There is nobody signed up to speak in favor, but if there's anybody on that would like to, please use your raise your hand button.
Not
Commissioner
seeing-
Gay, there are no hands raised.
Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application?
Again, there was no one signed up to speak, but if there's anybody present that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand button. Commissioner Gay, there are no hands raised.
Okay. Well, I guess that makes the next one redundant about like responding to any of these comments. So are there any further comments from the commission? So without any hands raised, the floor is now closed for comments. Is there any discussion on the application prior to the motion? Commissioner Hellman?
I have one additional question of just clarification for Director Justice. And it is in regard to the letter from the Chavises. I assume, one, because it is a pending lawsuit, that it isn't under our peer review, but two, because it really pertains, I guess, to where the actual placement would be of the guest house, that that issue will be addressed in a secondary matter later on, should we approve this conditional use. Is that correct?
Commissioner Holman, commissioners, that is correct. Essentially, I know this is kind of weird to just be talking about the use of the building and not the building itself, but this is to allow for someone to have a second home on the property, the design and placement of which is still pending and will be reviewed administratively. And just to go back to Commissioner Barrow's question about, whether or not this is injurious, a way to view it is whether or not the use of a guest house is injurious to the neighborhood or the surrounding property, not necessarily the structure itself.
Thank you.
Any other comments from any other commissioners? Seeing none, is there a motion? Commissioner Michelson?
I move for approval of 2203 with the conditions as stated by Tiffany Justice.
Do I have a second?
I'll move second.
Commissioner Holman, seconds. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Sometimes I have the same concerns as Commissioner Barrow did. I'm fairly outspoken about that. The public comment should be considered, and I understand that we can't factor that into a decision, and I completely understand why. It's, this matter between the two parties might or might not get settled. It's not our job as a commission to make those kind of decisions, but I do think that the people who live adjacent to this property, have some valid concerns, and I know that easements are not always even part of our review. We don't get to even decide what easements were correct or were not correct, but I do get that, you know, there's a lot of these kind of gray area issues about easements and access and things that, and we can say, yeah, they come up when they apply for a building permit, and they, you know, they probably will come up, but I'm not so sure if they're always addressed there either. So I'm not making comment one way or the other on it, but Commissioner Barrow, I do kind of agree that it does have it's something to think about, and you know, as a group, do we take adverse comment, public comment or not, you know? And had there not been this letter, this would have been an administrative permit and we would not even seen it. But there was in fact a letter written by the neighbors, and they do have some concerns. So I'm not trying to make a comment one way or the other. I am trying to just say that I do understand that the public comment that is reasonable should be considered. That's why we have it in our ordinances as part of this decision making. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that. Anybody else, any other commissioner discussed anything about the motion before I call for a vote? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay, yes. Commissioner Michelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Homan.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Let the record show that public hearing item 4A, the request by Joe and Julie Zamora for a conditional use permit for a guest house is formally closed. And thanks everybody for showing up. Next is BB 22-02, request by Lauren and Zachary Hartage for a bed and breakfast permit as allowed by 9.2.25E1 in the A1 zone in the South Rio Grande character area. The property is located at 4100 Dietz Court Northwest and is legally known as Lot 6, Block 1 of Dietz Acres, projected section 31T11 NR3 ENMPM, Village of Los Ranchos, New Mexico, as filed in the office of Bernalillo County Clerk on June 30, 1964. The property contains 0.50 acres, more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? None? Director Justice, when we have the planning report.
So the applicants wish to operate a bed and breakfast permit or a bed and breakfast at their residence, and bed and breakfasts are allowed in all residential zones as long as they have a bed and breakfast permit. There's a number of requirements for the applicants to meet, and they are in compliance with all of them, as I'll elaborate. Under section 9.2.25E1, the first requirement is that a bed and breakfast has access to city water and sewer, and this property does. Public notice requirements have been met in accordance with our public notice regulations. The operators are the property owners and they do live on premises. They did provide a proof of primary residence. Lodging is shown in the main dwelling on the property, and one guest room is noted, which is compliant with the 4 maximum allowed. Off-street parking is met. Right now, it's required to be 2 spaces for the property owner or operator and 1 space per bedroom or rental. Since there's only 1 bedroom or rental, 3 spaces are required, and this is met and well exceeded with parking spaces showing, the garage, the additional entry gate, behind the entry gate, and in the driveway. Meals won't be served. They won't have a sign, and the rules of operation are compliant with our subsection requirements A through G. Maximum authorized guests are noted as allowed. They have quiet hours, and their site plan and floor plan are compliant, and they did show the rental area specifically in the floor plan. The department does not recommend any additional conditions of approval since the application is in compliance with section 9.2.25 E1, and no prior bed and breakfast application has been submitted for this property in the prior 6 months. This application is in conformance with the master plan and the economic development section. And with that, the department recommends approval of BB 22-02, a request for bed and breakfast permit as allowed by section 9.2.25 E1 in the A1 zone in the South Rio Grande character area with the following conditions and findings. The conditions that the operation is subject to the requirements for bed and breakfast establishments listed under section 9.2.25 E1, and per 9.2.25 E1 B12, the operator must include their license number in their advertisements. Per section 9.2.25 E1 B14, the operator must post their license in their operation where it's visible. And per section 9.2.25 E1 B17, the bed and breakfast must be inspected annually by the fire department with the findings that the application is in conformance with section 9.2.25 E1 and public notice requirements have been met. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Are there any questions from the commission for Director Justice?
And before we get into the applicant and the public comment, I do have one comment that I would like to read aloud into the record. I sent the commissioners this. This is from Richard Garcia, who is, he has some adverse comment in your packet. This was submitted after the packet was published, and so I'm going to read it aloud into the record. He sent an email on April 5th. It says, I had communication with Lauren Hardage and I am satisfied that my concerns were addressed. You may consider my objection withdrawn. So I'd just like to note that in the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Justice. Are there any questions for the director? Commissioner Holman?
I have one question, or it may be more of a comment, and it may be directed more at Nan Winter. I noticed in their warranty deed, of course, I'm sure they've got title insurance that covers the property, but I was alarmed that they did a warranty deed stating that this address was in Albuquerque, which is on page 42 of 61. You'll see that the warranty deed states that they're given the warranty as joint tenants whose address is 4100 Dietz Court Northwest, Albuquerque. So just a comment that paperwork is not exactly in order for ownership.
Thank you for that. That was a good catch, Commissioner Holman. Is there anything to comment on, Nan?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Homans, I think I would just suggest that Tiffany probably needs to follow up with the applicant about this and probably issue a corrected warranty deed.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes, stand by.
Hi there. I don't know if you can, we should be unmuted. Yes. Great.
You're good. Hi, Lauren. Could you state your full name and address for the record? Make sure you get your address correct, please. We really want to know where you live.
My name's Lauren Hardage. I'm at 4100 Dietz Court Northwest in Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87107.
Good answer. And, okay, would you care to comment or share with us on your application?
Mr. Chairman, I probably need to swear her in first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. Could you please raise your right hand? And if your husband's going to speak, he should probably raise his right hand too. There you go. Do you both swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
And for the sake of the record, Mr. Hardage, could you state your full name and address into the record as well?
Yes, my name is Zachary Hardage. My address is 4100 Dietz Court Northwest, Los Ranchos to Albuquerque, 87107.
Okay, thank you both for that. Who wants to go first?
Well, Tiffany, maybe we'll follow up later about that address question. I'm remembering now our realtor saying something about when we entered Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, they wanted to shorten it to Los Ranchos, and our agent advised that it would be simpler just to put Albuquerque or something like that. So we have to look into that. And do we need to do that before we sort of proceed, or should we just talk about what we want to do with the property? Or
Lauren, Zachary, commissioners, at this point, we can address the bed and breakfast permit as it complies with the bed and breakfast permit. The warranty deed is something that we can address with Bernalillo County Clerk's office, separate from this issue. And we can, at this point, this is something that we will probably have to address prior to issuing a business license anyways.
okay, so basically we're here in the Dietz Farms area, and we just have a gorgeous 2,800 square foot house just with the two of us, and we have one room at the end with a little private entrance and a private gate and parking and everything. And it's just occasionally when our family comes, available for them, of course, but we thought, because we've enjoyed staying in short-term rentals before all around the country, we thought it would be neat to be able to do that, like maybe during Balloon Fiesta, or, you know, just occasionally, just to put, if we could have any extra funds to put towards more beautification, or, you know, just to have the option to do that, we thought that would be a great idea to apply. And we'll be here. We're not absentee owners, or we live here and we would be here. And it's an attached room, so we would be hearing everything that any guests, you know, noise that they would make, or overseeing any kind of disturbance or anything like that. And gosh, I don't know if there's any more helpful information to give, but that's the idea.
Okay, thanks for that. Mr. Hardage, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the application? Oh, wait, excuse me, I jumped ahead. Any commissioners have questions for the applicants? Okay, now, is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of the application? Kiko?
There's nobody signed up to speak in favor, but if anybody who's participating would like to speak, please use your raise your hand button. Commissioner Gay, there are no hands raised.
None, thank you, Kiko. Are there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application?
Again, if you would please use your raise your hand button if you would like to speak in opposition. Commissioner Gay, there is no hands raised.
Thank you, Kiko. Well, applicants would like to respond to any of these comments. There's no comments. Are there any further comments from the commission? Nope. The floor is now closed for comments. Is there any discussion on the application prior to a motion? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Commissioner Homan?
Second,
And who second?
second,
JT?
Commissioner Homan, just for the sake of the record, could your motion for approval be amended to include the conditions of the report if you so desire?
Yes, that was exactly what I was just thinking is, wait a minute. I would amend my motion for approval of BB 22-02 with the conditions stated in the planning report as directed in this meeting.
second,
Okay, thanks, everybody. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. We'll go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay, yes. Commissioner Michelson,
yes,
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes,
Commissioner Homan.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Let the record show that public hearing item 4B, the request by Lauren and Zachary Hardage for a bed and breakfast permit is formally closed. So thanks, everybody. And now we'll move on to old business. There is no old business. Next is new business, and up is the item A, adoption of resolution 2022-4, planning and zoning applicant deferrals. And I hope everybody read that. Is there any discussion from the commission on the ordinance, the change to the ordinance?
Commissioner Gay? Oh, sorry.
I would have a question for Director Justice. What is the magic with the 9 days? Is that just an arbitrary number, or is there some significance to 9 days?
So Commissioner Homan, commissioners, the idea behind 9 working days is this is 1 day more than when we publish the packet, which is 8 working days ahead of the meeting. So the idea here is that if somebody applies before the packet is published, then, or if somebody requests deferral before the packet is published, then then subsection 1 would apply. And after that, after the packet is published before the meeting, then it would fall under 2, which is when it's already on the agenda, it's already in the packet, and you all are anticipating it on the agenda.
An additional question, please. How many days, remind me, how many days in advance of the meeting do we have to make notice, public notice?
So Commissioner Holman, commissioners, it is technically 15 calendar days. We do much more than 15 because based on the commission's preference in the past, what was happening was that we would publish the packet 8 days before the meeting, and we had an overlap of those 8 days with the 15-day public comment period, which meant that people were submitting written comment after the packet was published, and it was not in the packet. It wasn't for public consumption, so we had to read aloud all those comments into the record. And so for a cleaner process, we have a full 15 days ahead of the packet being published. So we end up actually publishing about a month out for public notice, just so that we can meet that 15 days ahead of the 8 days before the meeting.
Thank you for that explanation.
Director Justice, I have a question on the advance request for deferral. Is the planning and zoning director approves those or disapproves them, and then it gets sent. But when you get to the emergency request for deferral, the planning and zoning commission chair has that authority. What's the logic between those two pieces of, can you explain that to me?
Yes, so Commissioner Gay, Commissioners, the difference there is that when the packet has already been published, it is already public record that this is on the agenda. And similar to how the mayor has discretion to add or remove items from the Board of Trustees agenda, we're proposing to give the chair the same discretion because something has already been noticed, it's already in the packet, and the public is assuming that this is going to be on the agenda.
Okay, so that is just in alignment with the Board of Trustees, similar rule.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll reread it with that in mind, and thank you, Commissioner Justice. Commissioner Hellman, another question?
Yes, so Director Justice, going down that same line of questioning that the chair just gave. So does that mean that the chair would have early access to these requests for deferral that the rest of the commission would not have?
Commissioner
Or
Holman,
would-
Commissioners, that is correct. This would be, so assuming there's a scenario where the packet has already been published and we do receive a written request, we would forward that to the chair and request that they act to decide whether to approve or deny or that deferral. In the event that they approve that deferral, then at the meeting, we would say that there are changes to the agenda and an application has been deferred. And then if the chair denied the deferral, then the applicant would have the opportunity to again request in front of the commission at the meeting their deferral. Otherwise, their application will be heard at the meeting. And the only additional piece of information that the chair would have ahead of the commission is just that deferral request because the packet would have already been published.
Okay. So that information isn't going to run afoul of any of our concerns for sharing of information to a portion of the commission without the entire commission having it. I'm just really concerned about the legality. I don't want us to run afoul of anything and set ourselves up for concern.
Right. This resolution has been run by Attorney Winter's office, but Attorney Winter, if you could, I guess, address whether or not this would be considered influential to, I guess, the chair's decision making, and that they could have this additional information outside of the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
We did review it. My law partner Jamie Dawes reviewed and worked with Tiffany on this. We didn't find that the chair's decision-making authority in this regard would run afoul of any village code, policy, resolution. And so, again, it was more or less just an intermediate step that allowed this emergency process to be facilitated.
Okay, but it would not be considered an ex parte communication of any kind.
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Attorney Winter. Anybody else have any questions or concerns about this? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move for approval.
Mayor Michelson moved to approve. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. Thank you.
Commissioner Barrow, second. So we've got a roll call vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Gay, yes. Commissioner Michelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes,
and Commissioner Homan.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. So now we go on to 7 reports. Planning Department report, Director Justice. May we have the Planning Department report, please?
So commissioners, you probably got an email from me yesterday. I am asking whether or not you would all be comfortable with an in-person meeting in June. So if you could respond to that, that would be great. The reason for June is because we have already done public notice for the May meeting. Again, we pretty much do it a month out in advance. So we have a very long public notice period for applications that are on the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda. In general, for the Planning and Zoning Department, Jennifer Schilling has resigned and will be leaving the village at the end of April after 3 years as the Planning and Zoning Assistant, then Coordinator and Records Information Manager. And so I'd like to thank her for her incredible work with the village, both with the Planning and Zoning Department and handling the Village Vision magazine for the past 2 years. She's been a knowledgeable and friendly face to residents, businesses, and contractors, and she'll be sorely missed. Thomas Sanchez, our code enforcement officer, is patrolling the village and working with property owners to bring their properties in compliance. Helen Ganal, our intern, is reviewing day-to-day permit and public hearing applications, such as minor subdivisions and conditional use permits. I'm processing some permits and answering general inquiries. The Board of Trustees did adopt the Conservation Development Pilot Project Ordinance at their March meeting, and an ordinance repealing the alarm device ordinance will be presented to the board for their advertisement at their April meeting. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chair or Commissioner, excuse me, Director Justice. Any questions for Director Tiffany Justice? Okay, hearing none. Yeah, it's too bad Jennifer's not on the call tonight, but I have enjoyed working with her in a lot of different areas, not just this, but the Master Plan Committee, the SECIA Committee, the other items, and she's been good to work with, so I will miss her. So we go to Commissioners' informal discussion. Are there any reports or information that any of the commissioners would like to share? Hearing none. Adjournment. 7:56. It's a record. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move, we adjourn.
Commissioner Holman or Commissioner Barrow moves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Second.
Let's see. So, for all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. So, meeting for April 12th, 2022 is adjourned at 7:57 p.m. Thanks everybody for showing up and the applicants for doing their civic duty.
Have a good day.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.